is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's flat. He throws. It is.
It is time for Past Our Prime. See what I did there, guys? I rhymed right out of the gate. And this week,
there you go.
On the cover of Sports Illustrated from July 28th, 1975, three former Miami Dolphins now going to the WFL, Jim Kiick, Paul Warfield, and one of the first guests we had on this show, our third episode, Larry Csonka. Bill Mahoney and Mark Hoffman join me again as they do every week. And guys, nothing against our guests for the first two shows, all great. Bob Thomas blew me away, Ed White, Peter Vesey, all great. But when we got Larry Csonka to say yes to come on our show, I was like, we might be onto something here.
Yep.
Went to his publisher and they were like, that sounds like a great idea. And speaking of, man, his book was great. I loved it.
It was.
Now the three Dolphins players are leaving the NFL and Miami for the WFL in Memphis. We'll talk about that ill-fated decision in a bit. But first, let's get to the scorecard. Mark, why don't you go first?
Oh, boy. Well, I'm going to talk about the Dodgers. Well, not the LA Dodgers. I'm going to talk about the Bellingham, Washington Dodgers of the Class A Northwest League. They are not a good club. And in fact, the year before, 1974, they were 52-32. They were a good team. I think they made the playoffs. But not in 75. The team started off 0-25. They started the year with a 25-game losing streak and broke the old mark of 23, which was set by the Lewiston, Idaho team in 1937. This was not a good team. They ended up finishing the year 17-61. But remember, like the Baltimore Orioles, was it an 88 or something? They began the season like with, what was it, 19, 20, 21 straight losses?
Yeah, they were horrible.
Why would you like to have your season over in mid-April, you know?
You mean like a lot of my Ace years?
Yeah.
And like a lot of my Angels years, pal. They're done by May. Bruce Bochy was hitting 236. It was done.
Yeah. A lot of teams, their seasons are over in March.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
And,
the Pirates.
The Pirates season in 2026 is over.
Yep, that's right. As is the Marlins, yeah.
Bill,
Rockies. Yes.
What do you got?
Okay. So we all know that Bob Watson scored the 1 millionth run in Major League Baseball. We talked about it last week. Well, the Seiko Time Watch Corporation has come up with the time they think that the 2 millionth run will be scored in Major League Baseball. They say it's going to take place on June 12th, 2042. In this magazine, they're saying, would anyone like to take the odds that it'll be scored by a woman? At this point in time, I would take those odds. But we do have a few players in baseball now that might have a chance to do it. That's 17 years away. And one of the Jacksons, Jackson Churio, Jackson Holiday, or Jackson Merrill, they're 21 right now. That'd make them, 38? James Wood is only 22. So maybe one of those guys could do it.
Yeah. Or certainly, the guys like the people who just got drafted in this year's draft. Maybe the kid that went to Mark's preschool.
Not my
That's
preschool.
exactly right.
Preschool.
That's right.
Right.
Now,
Maybe
just so you
smart.
guys know, if we're still doing pop in 2042, we'll be right in our wheelhouse because we'll be reading issues from 1992.
Yeah.
I'll be like,
See?
hey, Bill, like, what happened? Yeah.
The funny thing is they said 2042.
Yeah.
I'll bet you their calculations are way off. Scoring's got to be first of all, there's so many more teams.
Yes.
There's got to be way more runs, and scoring is up. I'll bet you they're off by a few years.
Yeah, because you're right. Back in those days, they weren't scoring as much as they were now or are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did they have in 75? Did they have 8? They had 7, maybe 26 teams, I think,
Yeah.
before Seattle
Yep.
and Toronto joined. So then they have 4 more teams now. So interesting.
Well, then Sports Illustrated's just a bunch of liars then.
That's what I got. They
Yeah.
won't even
Yeah, they won't
take,
even admit it.
you tried to subscribe to them. They won't even get back to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I sent my thing in 4 months ago and said I would like to get my subscription for $3. Bastards.
They just ignored you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Mark.
They said it, Mark. Alan Rothenberg. Who's that?
Well, Alan Rothenberg is a Laker attorney, and he was like talking about how news people missed the clue that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was headed to the purple and gold. He said during the league meetings, when it came time to vote on whether to retain the center jump, the Lakers voted to keep it, and Milwaukee voted to get rid of it.
Makes you wonder, right? Makes
Yeah.
you wonder.
Yeah.
I got to think that back then Kareem was winning a majority of those jumps.
Right. And as I said in previous shows, Kareem said that basically he went up to the Bucks, before the 74-75 season, said, look, I'm not going to renew my contract. I'm going to be a free agent after this. So, you should trade me, and I'd prefer to go to New York or Los Angeles. I don't care which team you trade me to. So he let Milwaukee know ahead of time that he wasn't coming back.
Yep.
I wish I would have been able to see Kareem back at the beginning of his career, because I got him right when he was with the Lakers. But when he was with the Bucks, just from reading these magazines, he just seemed dominant.
He was unstoppable.
Yeah. Did you see him, Mark?
Oh, yeah. I went to games, live games, watched him on TV all the time. He was unbelievable. And the Bucks, but he only won 1 title with the Bucks.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
he should have won. He should have won more in Milwaukee.
And it took him quite a long time to win another. That's the Bucks I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Not as long for Kareem.
No.
Had a nice little end to that career, didn't he?
He sure did, didn't he? Bring in magic, and all of a sudden things changed. Don Ford just didn't seem to be doing it for him.
What did Bob Gibson have to say, Billy?
He said if I was a young kid, they'd look at my stuff and say I was a heck of a prospect. Because he's 39 now.
39. In fact, this issue of SI came out on July 28th, 1975. The day before, July 27th, 1975, Bob Gibson won his 3rd game of the season and the 251st and final game of his Hall of Fame career, one of the all-time greats. He was... man, that 68 season is one for the ages.
Yep.
I think that's the year where he never once was taken out of a game mid-inning.
What was the year? Was it 1.12 that year?
Yep, 1-1-2.
Who would in their right mind go up to him out and say, Bob, you're coming out?
Right?
Exactly.
Right.
What manager would have the guts to do that?
Yeah.
Yep.
But Carver, they used to say, go out and talk to him. He's like, I'm not going out to talk to him. Let's get to the top story. In the main, the rain was a pain. We've talked a bit about Formula One racing. None of us are anything close to experts on the matter, but the British Grand Prix was run in the rain. And when they waved the checkered flag, it was Niki Lauda driving his Ferrari 312T. I don't know what that means. He said they should have stopped the race much
Just
earlier.
sell it.
Right? Ferrari 312T.
Yes. Come on. Mark has one of those.
I do.
They should have stopped it earlier because of the rain. Why? Well, listen to this. American driver Mark Donohue is a good example. The winner of the Indy 572. He's one of 11 drivers who crashed on their own, just lost control of the car because of the conditions. It was like I was driving on clear ice, said Donohue. And West Germany's Johann Maas said, I tried the brakes for 2,000 yards, but I finally went through the catch fence. The puddles were so thick, I just floated across the top of them. 2,000 yards is a little longer than a mile.
Ooh.
I mean, could you imagine putting your brakes on for a mile and having no control?
Right down the freeway, go past your
What
exit.
just-
Damn it,
just-
man, I'm still sliding.
Oh, but the great Nicky Lauda wins this race, and he was a force back then, wasn't he, Bill?
Yeah, in just looking at his career, in his first 74 races, Lauda only won 4 races. In his next 83, he won 20, including 17 F1s, which F1s is caught, you just said, they're the only racing, whatever it be, NASCAR or Indy, that actually do drive in the rain. They still do to this day.
That's insane. And
Yeah.
they go upwards of, 180, 190
Yep.
miles an hour, maybe 200 miles an hour. I don't know, but crazy speeds.
And this race was actually stopped at lap 55 because of all the rain. And I think they actually declared Emerson Fittipaldi the winner. I think Lauda was going to was ahead on the points total. He was going to win the.
Ah, that's right. That's right. Yep.
So, and it was controversial that they awarded it to Fittipaldi after, the rain kind of aborted the race.
And see, there's another perfect example. I don't know anything about Fittipaldi, but I know that name.
Right.
Yes, same. Yeah, Nicky Lauda, you know that. James Hunt, Nicky
Yep.
Lauda, and Fittipaldi. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
I mean, there's a great picture of Nicky Lauda after the race, and they got a microphone in front of him. And this is his pre-accident. So, he's a handsome man, and then you think, within the next year, everything's going to change. He's going to become disfigured,
Yeah.
But, I mean, what is the saying? Beauty is only skin deep. We're all, into like how people look on the surface,
Yeah.
and what they're like inside. But, the courage he had to come back, from that and to race, and he lived a long life.
And
Yeah.
he, after that wreck, Mark, he only missed 2 races after
Right.
that wreck. 2.
Is that right?
Yeah, only missed 2 races. And if you watch the accident, if you see it, you don't see the accident. You see the guys coming around the corners, and then you see this car on fire. The drivers were the ones that had to help Lauda out of the car. The drivers are the ones that actually get out and help him. And Nicky Lauda had been forming a petition to try to boycott some of the races because he didn't believe there was enough safety crews out there. So really, it was the drivers that saved his life.
Wow.
And for those of you that don't know, yeah, he got into a horrible accident and suffered major burns across, his entire body, including his face. And I had no idea. I mean, 2 races, that's astounding.
And for you people out there, if you want to see a real good movie about it, see the movie Driven that was, I think, done by Ron Howard. And it talks about the story of Lauda and then his relationship with James Hunt, who was in this British Grand Prix race as well. And Hunt was like a big imposing figure and died very young.
Okay, let's talk about a crazy court case that could have changed sports forever. Dave Forbes was on the Boston Bruins, and he gets indicted for hitting North Star center Henry Bucha, nicknamed Chief, with his stick. It seriously injures Bucha. I mean, really hurts him. But Bill, Forbes had a rival coach who was saying what many were thinking, that this lawsuit was ridiculous.
Yeah, Fred Shiro, the coach of the Flyers, said, "This trial is a joke. There'd be no sports, no leagues if this kind of thing always happened. If a guy threw a baseball at your head, you'd immediately sue him. If a guy came into second base with his spikes high, you'd sue him. In football, they'd jump you from behind, they'd knee you, they kick you, and all you'd have to do is get the film of this, say it's illegal, and sue him. It's crazy."
I mean, I think that was pretty much the sentiment of all of this. But Mark, in this particular trial, what ended up happening?
The jury deadlocked. They couldn't come to a decision. He ended up getting suspended for 10 games, and there was a civil case where I think he paid $1 million. But yeah, the jury he couldn't make a decision.
Yeah, and this trial came down to 2 jurors, a man and a woman. The man didn't think he did it on purpose. The woman thought he did. I think one was called the Fan, and the other they had another nickname for the woman. Those are the only 2. They're the ones that held it up.
I'm going to get in trouble here, but a man and a woman having a difference of opinion.
Who
Who saw that coming?
Who knew that
Right.
would happen, Mark? That never happens in real life.
Never, never. And I'm sleeping
I
on the
mean,
couch tonight.
Exactly.
it is kind of amazing to think that had they come to the conclusion that, I mean, hockey's not the same as it was back in the 70s. And it wasn't just that he hit him with the stick, because I think after he hits him with the stick, he then pounces on him and pummels him. And that was part of hockey. You have to think, hopefully, that, I mean, a lot of these guys, even back then, they'll fight like to the death,
Mhm.
and then they'll go have a beer with the guy afterwards. It's not personal, it was part of the game. But yeah, this could have ended really badly for all involved.
And the thing
So
is they're saying that there was some witness that said Forbes, when he skated by Boucher, said, "I'm going to come for your eye."
ah,
I don't believe that. I just, for some reason, oh yeah, witness right on the edge of the ice said that. I have a hard time believing that a hockey player, even in those days, would come up and basically specifically tell you, "I'm going to take out a part of your body."
right.
And people were saying that when he hit him, when Forbes hit Boucher, that blood was already spurting out of his eye. So I don't know how true that was, since we've never seen it, but that was fortunate that it didn't happen, because there'd be no sports in 2025.
Yeah, yeah. They're grinning and bearing. The trio of Super Bowl champion Dolphins, Paul Warfield, Jim Kiick, and Larry Csonka, are officially part of the World Football League. And Mark, already there is an issue, and it has to do with pants.
That's
What the
right.
heck's with the pants?
Right. They wanted to wear like Zonka and Kiick and Paul Warfield. They wanted to wear these fancy pants, And so remember, okay, their jerseys are orange with black numerals and a black stripe. So one of the pants is all white and it has 3 stars going up the side of different colors, none that match their uniform. That one's actually the good pants. The other one is like it's teal or green and it looks like there's some black in it, but there's stripes running down up and down the teal side of it, and it doesn't make any sense. I don't know what shape it's supposed to be or anything. It's like it's just makes no, so they'd be ugly pajamas is what they would be.
I mean, Mark is our resident expert when it comes to
Fashion.
uniforms from
Yes.
50 years
Yes.
ago.
Yes.
And these are right at the top of some of the worst ones.
They
Man,
would
Mark, I think
rival
it'd be
the
awesome if we get a hold of those pants and just see you wear them once.
well, no,
Yeah.
I would rather wear the 1960 Denver Bronco uniforms.
No, you have to wear
The
these green
vertical
ones.
stripes, the
You have to wear
brown.
the green ones and go into place and order something.
In your
I
fancy
wore worse. I once wore to CBS these shorts, baggy shorts.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they were. And I wore it one time and one time only. I don't know what I was thinking that day, but it was like, oh my God. I think I no one took a picture of it because
Yeah. Sorry, I'm digressing here. Did you guys ever go through the what is it, MC Hammer pant?
no.
Yeah, I did. I
Oh
used to
my
have a
God.
bunch of those pants.
No, I actually had pants. Wait a second. In the late 80s, early 90s, I had pants that the bottoms were very narrow, they were like,
Yeah.
and they were baggy up
Baggy.
by the
That was it. That
waist,
was the
but
pants. I had
but
like
they
three,
were
4 pairs of
gray,
them.
and I had a maroon shirt that went with it, and I thought I looked really hip back
No
then,
question.
and I probably did.
Can't
But I
touch
also
this,
had
man. You can't
I
touch this.
I also had a suit I bought in the early 90s. I swear to God, the suit was teal color. It was a teal. Boy, the people at that store were laughing when I walked out. Like, I can't believe someone actually bought that.
But at the time, you thought it looked good, and it probably
No,
did back in the day.
I think
Probably
even Morrow's trying to tell me now.
What year is this?
when MC Hammer came out with the "Can't Touch This," because
The
he had
teal
remember,
the
remember the
teal
dance
suit
that
was
he
early
did. Remember
90s.
that dance that he used to do, the little
Yeah, no, I was thinking Mark sounds more Miami Vice
Yes,
style.
exactly.
my big,
Exactly.
because I did the MC Hammer, and I had 3 of those pants. I wore them all the time. Thought, man,
And you know what I remember when I was at that store buying that suit? There was an actress at the store that day named Barbara Rush,
I
who's
remember. It sounds familiar.
a beautiful lady, and I just remember her being there that day, and she was probably thinking, "What the hell's wrong with that guy?"
You could have walked up and she could have given you an opinion, and you probably would have taken it and never bought that suit.
Um,
Right.
and
Yep.
she is in one of the most underrated movies of all time called
Heidi
Ombre.
Fincher.
but it was made in 1967, Twig, so you can watch it. 1967.
No chance.
Scott
Never
Paul
heard of
Newman,
it.
Richard Boone. It's a Western.
Scott, aren't you
Leonard
still watching
Elmoy.
the Sierra Madre movie?
Leonard
Right.
Elmore of Get Shorty fame wrote that book and then the screenplay.
Oh, hated Get Shorty.
Why did you hate that
You
one?
hate everything. I'm not talking movies with you anymore.
Why'd you hate Get Shorty? It wasn't bad.
Horrible. What was the other one that was like Get Shorty?
Oh yeah, the one with Gene that was Gene Hackman and Get Shorty. What was the one, the screenplay? That was Gene. He did a sequel. There was a sequel to Get Shorty.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
I just forgot what the name of that was.
James Gandolfini was in Get Shorty.
Yes, he sure was. He was the guy that
with the beard. He had the beard.
Yeah, he was the sort of bouncer for the
for Delroy Lindo.
That's it. Yeah, and so was Rene Russo.
Yep.
Well,
yeah.
Scott doesn't know his movies now.
No, he doesn't. Nothing before 1960. He knows nothing.
It's Scott.
And
But Scott likes all the.
No, wait. Is it
Scott likes
1960?
all the Fast and Furious movies. So
is it 1960 or 1970? Where's your cutoff again?
Nothing before 1970.
Oh, okay. All right. So you couldn't have seen Andre anyway.
Wow.
Oh my God. You.
Who directed Get Shorty?
I don't know. I have to look it up.
I don't know, Mark. Should we just hang up now?
Yeah.
It was Travolta was in that.
He was.
Wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
You don't like Travolta either?
I do like him.
Oh, okay. So you liked him in Pulp Fiction.
Wasn't Gene Hackman in it too?
Yeah.
Walked out on Pulp Fiction.
Why?
Oh, hated that movie. I can't. You know what I think?
I know.
Tarantino. Worst most overrated director ever.
Wow. You're never going to be in any of his movies.
He doesn't do any more movies.
There it is. I was going to get him on the podcast now. Forget it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Call him after this, Mark, and just say we can't have you.
Yep.
My mom wouldn't put up with it anyway. They played their first exhibition game and it didn't go well, but another former past our prime guest had a huge game.
Yeah, they only lost by 31 to the Southern California Sun, but
Singular.
Anthony Davis, wow, of the who was with the Sun, he had 4 touchdowns because he wasn't good enough to play in the NFL, but he got 4 touchdowns and ran for 56 yards. And that was quite a bit better than Csonka, who just gained 12 yards. Kiick had 3 yards, and Warfield only caught a single pass. So Anthony Davis, a past our prime alumnus, was quite awesome in that game.
He was. In fact, I don't know if this is going to be his rookie year, right? I think he had like 1,700 yards rushing that year in the WFL. So he was great in the World Football League.
He was such an interesting guest, too, because he sort of admitted to a lot of these things that he wished he would have done differently.
Yeah, great athlete, great baseball player, too. Most people don't know that. I didn't realize
Neither did I. Yeah.
In game 2 of the exhibition season against San Antonio, they improve a little bit. A 79-yard punt return was the game's only score, but Zonk did rush for 90 yards in a losing effort. The regular season starts on August 2nd. So they only got about 5 days to figure this out in Memphis. A good old country boy. We talked with Mr. Ranger Tom Grieve last month, who played for Billy Martin on the 1975 Texas Rangers. Martin was on the cover of SI for helping to turn the Rangers around, and Grieve gave Martin lots of credit, but he also said that the talent on the team was getting better. Mike Hargrove being one of the young up-and-comers. He wins Rookie of the Year in 74 when he hit 323. No sophomore slump for the lefty hitting Hargrove this year in 75. He hits over 300 again. And he walked a ton as well, which is kind of funny because he virtually had no power. I mean, I think he hit like 2 home runs this year, but he just had a great eye. A career on-base percentage of almost 400, which is, usually for the great power hitters because, they get walked a lot. But Hargrove makes the team out of spring training in 74 when he hit 486. Was hoping to go to Double-A, and Billy Martin said, well, if you don't like the idea of coming to the bigs, I can change my mind. So Mike Hargrove, a tough son of a gun and a hell of a hitter.
He also had quite a temper, it appears, because Jim Sundberg had said that Hargrove had run-ins with a whole bunch of players like Sal Bando and Jack Brohammer. And then he also went after Bert Campaneris because Campaneris complained that Hargrove was tagging him too hard on throws to first base. So what did Hargrove do? He said, if you're hurt, get out of the game. And with
Wow.
that, he began tagging Campaneris even harder.
Yeah.
But you don't realize
He and Bob Gibson should get together.
Yeah.
But
But you
Mike
know what?
Hargrove, if
I
you think
mean,
about it, Mike Hargrove took the Indians to the World Series twice.
yeah.
What an amazing manager. I mean, an underrated player, but another great manager too.
And that's the kind of guy that you just loved having on your team. You're like, oh, the guy's complaining that he's tagging him too hard, and the next thing you know, he's like, oh, I'll show you what's too
Yep.
hard. Um, and I remember what his nickname. You guys remember what his nickname was?
Oh, you're gonna say it, and I do. I don't remember it though. Mark,
No.
The human rain delay.
Oh.
that's it. Yeah, that's right. 'Cause he used to spit. Yes.
He'd get in the box. I mean, and he would, he'd fix both his gloves, and then he'd straighten his hat, and then he'd pull his pants up, and then he'd, fix his batting glove and blah, and then he'd step in, and the guy'd throw a ball, and he'd step out, and he'd fix both batting gloves, and he did the same thing in between each pitch. The human rain delay, one of the best nicknames of that era. Mark, give us an update on your shitty Tigers.
Oh, hey, that's shitey. That's shitey. Okay. They went 3-2 this week. And, Larry LeGros beat the White Sox 9-1. John Hiller got his 12th and 13th save of the year. And they actually moved out of last place. They moved just in front of the Cleveland Indians. Why is this significant? The Tigers were 41 and 49. In fact, they would win their next game to go 42 and 49. But the start of their 19-game losing streak begins on July 29th and lasts till August 15th. The Tigers finished the year with 15 wins and 53 losses. So they are going to go. So we were talking about the Bellingham Dodgers going 0 and 25. At least the Tigers didn't go 0 and 25. But I mean, take the 19-game losing streak out. They're still 15 and 34 to end the year.
Right. Yeah, it's weird because I went back and that roster wasn't good, but it wasn't like horrible. They just
There were a
got
lot of older players on the team, and I think as the season dragged on, they just, the dog days of
ran out
office
of
got to
gas.
them.
Because like this last 2 week stretch, they've been okay, but boy, it really turned.
Yeah.
It was not a fun summer, that's for sure.
Nope.
Billy, give us something on the Ryan Express.
Sure. He had lost 2-0 to Milwaukee for his 7th loss in a row. I never would thought Nolan Ryan with his stuff and obviously ability could lose 7 in a row, but he did.
Well, you know why?
I know why. I don't say it though, man.
Because he was on the cover of Sports
Oh,
Illustrated.
that's it too. Yeah, it's got to be it.
And he was on the Angels.
Now the fact you have Dave Chalk at third base, and you're
Dave Chalk. Oh, I love that. Great.
Bruce Bochy. Yeah, I was there for them all, man. Willie Mays.
Bruce Bochy was left for the expansion draft and had a decent career with the Mariners.
I know that. He had some amazing years, but with the Angels,
not so much.
But they did have Dick Pole and all the other guys that, yeah. There's some tough sledding there. No.
Breezing in at the Open, the U.S. Open for the ladies. I know they hate being called that. I once had to write an hour script on the LPGA Women's U.S. Open, and they told me I could not use the word ladies, even though the L in LPGA stands for ladies.
Why couldn't you?
Can't say ladies.
It's not the U.S. Ladies Open; it's the U.S. Women's Open.
So what did you write the whole time?
Anything but the word ladies.
Woman, girls, broads.
Yeah, chicks.
I could go on and give a few, but Mark would be offended.
Yeah. And our guest would be offended.
Could not say ladies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, dang.
Who knew? Back in 75, you could say it. And when it came to Sandra Palmer, you could also call her U.S. Open champion. She won the Open by 4 strokes in Atlantic City, with 3 others finishing tied for second. Big Mama, Joanne Carner, Sandra Post, and an amateur by the name of Nancy Lopez. So this Sandra Palmer had a good week and wins the U.S. Open.
And by the way, Nancy Lopez was only 18 at this tournament. She was an amateur. And who did she end up marrying?
Ray Knight.
And where did Ray Knight end his professional baseball career?
Not the Mets.
Probably the Tigers.
The Tigers, 1988.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good tie in there, buddy.
There you
go. Good tie in.
I think she was married to Ray Knight for a long time.
She was. It was Nancy Lopez Knight for the longest time on the scorecard.
They're not still married. Yeah, they got divorced, didn't they?
Yeah, they got divorced. Yeah. But I mean, just think about it. The LPG tournaments really, you're bringing in these names, you've got already Sandra Palmer, but Nancy Lopez is playing the tournament. Amy Alcott's playing in the tournament. I mean, it's the beginning of a whole new wave of women golfers that are going to change the trajectory of how women are perceived in golf.
Yeah. Nancy would go on to have a Hall of Fame career, but she never won the U.S. Open. That is hard to believe. The Hall of Famer, she came in second 4 times here in 75, again in 77, in 1989, and in 1997 as well. So you can see that she had a long career as well. Sandra Palmer would have her best year of her career in 1975 and was named the LPGA Player of the Year, topping the money list that year at around $100,000, and also was inducted into the Hall of Fame. She was inducted in the Hall of Fame just last year.
Wow.
Joining us now is someone who knows a thing or two about winning the U.S. Women's Open. In 1975, she joined the LPGA Tour at the age of 18 after graduating from Palisades High School in Pacific Palisades. A month later, she won her first professional tournament a day after turning 19, and she was named the tour's Rookie of the Year. Amy Alcott would go on to win 28 more LPGA tournaments, 5 of them majors, including the U.S. Women's Open in 1980, and in 1999, she was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame, one of the best to ever do it on the LPGA Tour. Amy, thanks for coming on the Past Our Prime podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here with you guys. This is terrific. Thank you.
Amy,
you've certainly done your research.
Hey, when we get to people like you, there's a lot to get through, my goodness. Right. But let's start at the beginning, or somewhat. Amy, 1975, you joined the tour as an 18-year-old, and the next thing you know, you are cashing a check for winning the Orange Blossom Classic. That must have been an insane time in your life. Are you thinking, my goodness, this is going to be easy?
I never thought it was going to be easy, believe me. But I certainly was following my dream, and was just on the tour for 3 weeks. I had just joined the tour and qualified, and 3 weeks later, I'm at my second tournament I ever played. I'm just playing lights out. I'm a young kid with pigtails on, and playing against women twice my age that I had read about in the paper, and made this winning putt, 25-footer on the last hole. I hung in there and made this winning putt, and I didn't look back. I mean, to win that quickly was pretty phenomenal to do that. But I guess I didn't think it was phenomenal. Because that's why I was there. My teacher, Walter Keller, called me a little racehorse when I was a kid, and that's why I chose to go out on the tour, even though I didn't go to college.
And as you mentioned, it wasn't that easy. It took you a little more than a year, 15 months to then win again. How important was it for that second win? Like the one win, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, but then to continue to make your game, to improve it and prove that, hey, I'm going to be around. I'm not just a one-hit wonder here.
Right. Well, and you see that a lot in sports. Somebody wins the U.S. Open, and that's the only tournament they win in their career. But to me, looking at the broad spectrum of golf, it's all about consistency. It's not, you don't win very often, unless you're Scotty Scheffler right now. But you don't win very often, and you have to embrace it when you do. But ultimately it comes from hard work and persistence and consistency, developing a level of consistency that you're always in contention, no matter what. Whether you finish 5th or 10th or 15th, that you're always in contention as a top player. And that's what allows you to kind of break through and win. One of the things I guess I'm the most proud of for, I think, the first 12 years of my career, somebody with Golf Digest told me that there were only 2 other players in the history of the game that had won one tournament for their first 12 years, every year of their career. They hadn't gone into a slump. They hadn't, and that's a tough thing to do in golf, but you tend to be reminded by things that you don't think about. So to me, was all about, the process and the journey.
What gravitated you to golf as a young person? How did you start? How did you develop this passion for the game?
Well, I grew up in a little house in Brentwood that after I found golf, it affectionately became known as the Alcott Golf and Country Club because my whole front yard was a golf course and backyard, but I'll get into that in a minute. I used to watch cartoons on TV, and then I was a little tomboy, and my dad had got his dental degree. We were 3 kids. I was the baby, born in Kansas City, moved out, started his dental practice, bought a house in Brentwood for $19,000 with like a paddle tennis court and a swimming pool. I'm sure he was going to figure out how to pay for that. My dad was from New York. He was a handball player. He grew up on the streets of New York, and used to take me down to Venice Beach before Venice Beach was what it was. And I'd watch all these East Coast doctors of all kinds of doctors. They'd meet there on Saturdays and play. And my dad just took me around, that it was just okay to be a girl doing things he exposed me to a lot of things, even though he was not a golfer. And my mom was the same way, but the golf shows would come on TV after the cartoons, and I was fascinated by the artistry of the sport, what I call the dance step. And my mom had a set of clubs my dad had got her with maroon shafts. And I asked my dad if I could have one of those pushers, one of those things the guys on the CBS Golf Classic, Shell's Wonderful Work, pushing. So he cut it down with a saw, like some kind of metal device, and put duct tape on it. And it was about, 13, 14 inches long. And I went around with a ball pushing balls into sprinkler heads in the front yard. And that's how it all started. The obsession, you couldn't get me away from it. My mom gave up her roses. Amy used to chip out of the ivy onto the yard over the sidewalk. My dad built a sand trap in the front yard. We'd go down to Fisher Lumber because I hit so many balls. And we get new sand every couple of weeks. My dad, mom and dad put a huge net up across the house so I could hit real balls, so I didn't break my window more than once at the front of the house, so I could hit balls from the sand trap over the sidewalk onto the lawn and work on my bunker game. And that's really how it all started. And then I did meet the teacher who became my only teacher, Walter Keller. We were coming back from a drive-in movie at Westwood Boulevard, and I'm looking out the window at 10 o'clock at night. There's this obsessed young golfer, obsessed by it. And I said to my mom, I want to go there. I want to go there. And we went to, she says, well, I'll take you over there after school one day. So that's where I met Walter Keller, who owned Walter Keller Golf Shop, 2138 Westwood Boulevard. And he was one of the first golf discounters. You could go around a lot of places here in LA today, and people all remember Walter. You know, everybody used to buy their clubs from him. And we walked in there, and I was a kid in a candy store, and I walked into the back and I grabbed a club and I got on this platform. And with this little flat swing, I started hitting balls into a net, and he happened to walk by. And he said, "Who are you with that little swing?" And I said, "I'm Amy Alcott." And my mother says, "This is my daughter, Amy. She loves golf. I'm Lee Alcott." Well, she's a little racehorse. This gal's got talent. And do that again for me. And I took a swing in front of a mirror. Now it's videotape and TrackMasters. But he said, "I'd like to give her lessons," Walter said. So my mother bought 6 lessons for $36, and the rest is history. Walter started giving me lessons. We built a net in my backyard. My parents weren't golfers. We weren't members at a country club. As I learned and played mostly on my front lawn and into the net and whatever, or at Holmby Park, par 3. It was very rare I got to go out and play an 18-hole course. Not a country club kid, nothing like that. But I had this immense drive and love to find out every aspect that makes someone a great player. And I guess I had the goods to deliver.
So 1975 is your rookie year on the tour, and they say you get a win, and then comes this U.S. Open that the magazine talks about. And you've got these great golfers in there. Even there was an amateur, Nancy Lopez played in the tournament too, and I believe finished second. What was the LPGA Tour like in 1975, and these professional golfers that were established, and some like you and Nancy that were just getting started?
Well, it was rough around the edges compared to what it is now. I was playing as a 18-year-old, 19-year-old girl, and every week against people that could be like my mother. You know, I was so young out there, but I really didn't think about it. I didn't think if anyone liked me. If I was interviewed, I would say I want to be the best woman golfer in the world. I want to set the world on fire. And other players would come up to me and says, "You can't talk like that. You can't." They weren't used to somebody telling the truth or being upfront and honest about really what they wanted. Nowadays, if you say something like that, if Caitlin Clark, for example, said, "I want to be the best basketball player in the world," they just call her cocky and gifted. But back then they called me, they called me cocky, or brash or whatever. So I didn't make many friends out there, but I didn't really care. I was just out there to win. And the tour, did not play for the purses it does today. It doesn't, the courses were not as good. There's just a lot of aspects to it. And recently, because this is the 75th anniversary of the LPGA this year, I've been interviewed a lot about, some of the people way back that I got to know because I was so young, the Kathy Whitworths of the world, who's the winningest golfer, male or female of all time. Kathy actually inducted me into the World Golf Hall of Fame when I was inducted in '99. These were women that the original founders of the tour, I mean, they travel around in their own cars and write their own checks and set up their own golf courses. And I mean, this is really the history of the Patty Bergs, the Louise Suggses, the Shirley Sporks, the Marlene Hagees. These were the Babe Dietrichson. They set it a playing field for me to have a playing field. And I feel a responsibility to do that have felt it as I've kind of moved on to another phase of life to do that with other younger players.
You just mentioned Whitworth and how she's been part of your life. How did she and some of the other older players help you with your game or just help you with anything? And what was it like to get to know them?
Well, I didn't have any of them help me with my game. I was pretty hard-headed. Um, I'm a big believer. You want to get screwed up with your career, you have rabbit ears, you try too many things, change too many clubs, you gotta kind of dance with what brung you. And I felt like I had a really good foundation with Walter Keller as my teacher. When I got out of high school and out into this real world of traveling every week and professional golf and whatever, I got to kind of, you know, I understand that, some people might want to mess with you just mentally because they're just want to mess you up, so you had to be hard-headed and not talk to them about you necessarily. So I didn't rely on any players to help me with my game.
We've done a number of these issues and at least back 74, 75 so far. And when they talk about women's golf, it's always like, oh, wow, the women got $500 for a tournament. And the men were obviously doing a lot better. What have you seen? What were the things that you had to sort of go through back in that day that people nowadays would go, there's no way that that happened?
Right. Well, my mother used to say, well, I have to get a microscope and turn to the back page of the LA Times where they have the golf scores and they list the top 5. There would not be an article, no information. It just would say the Rail Charity Classic or the Lady Keystone Open or the Orange Blossom Classic or even the US Open. And there'd be the scores of maybe the top 5 players and maybe what they made that week. I've seen the tour grow from this unrespected, another, women's golf, not supported, no big sponsors, into like a bona fide sports organization. That's what I've seen. And more of late, especially, I have seen, I have had conversations with, was talking to Amanda Balionis, who is on CBS doing a feature. And I told her, if you can't sell and market women's sports right now, you'll never be able to. So we're in a whole different era that women's sports is really, whether it's basketball or soccer or golf or tennis, it's all been redefined from what it was back in the days when I started. And, I would still be doing it if I didn't have to travel. I still love golf. I still play golf. Love competition, love competing. It's just the travel that's exhausting. And it was, harder probably back then. Now everybody out there, when you watch Wimbledon on TV, I was remarking to somebody, they're remarking, congratulations to you, to your team. Everything's your team. Team this, team golf. Everybody's got a team, a yoga instructor, somebody to make their smoothies, somebody to stretch them out. They employ a team of 5 or 6 people. Back then it was just me, and a caddy. So the whole, everything is about, relying on your team to make you as successful as you can. So it's a different, it's all changed.
Yep. 1979, Amy, it really starts to come together at the ripe old age of 23. 4 tournament wins, including your first major, what was known as the Peter Jackson Classic. I think they call it the Canadian Open now. Runner-up of that tournament, another Hall of Famer. Mark mentioned her earlier, Nancy Lopez. What do you remember about that first big major?
Well, that was my first major I ever won. November of what was that?
79.
22. Yeah. Richelieu Valley Country Club, Vallée de Richelieu. Funny enough, I had not been back there until last year to actually see the golf course. Lots of the courses I won on, like the US Open, and when I won in 1980, that course doesn't exist anymore. So it was a treat to kind of go back. I remember I was very sick. I had a flu bug. I probably shouldn't have played. I had like 103 temperature. I was just totally out of it. But I do remember the 18th hole. And I do remember it was a short par 5, but you had to hit a good drive. And I hit this great drive. And I think I had a 1-shot lead or was tied for the lead with Nancy. And I went for the green in 2 with this great like draw 7-wood, but the shot ended up about 55, 60 feet from the hole. And she was playing in the group behind us. And as I walked on the green, there were all these screaming French Canadians yelling bon chance or whatever it was. I had this caddy who worked for me for quite a while. They called him Tonto Larry. He used to read putts like, get down and read putts like this, so he looked like Tonto. And he was way in the distance. I said, Larry, I'm just going to try to get this close, into like where I can, and I could hardly see him. He was so far away. I mean, it was a really long putt. And I make the putt for an eagle.
Oh.
And I look back on the 18th tee behind me and I see the crowd went so crazy. Nancy snapped her drive into the trees. That was an amazing win for us. And that just kind of, I'll always remember that one. I'll always remember Larry, bless his heart. So that was quite a win to be sick that week and be so out of it. That's where I came up with the expression, beware of when somebody in a golf tournament tells you they're sick, they're going to play well. And it's usually the case,
You were the OG like Jordan. Jordan got all that credit for playing sick, It was, you did it 10 years before he did. 15.
Well, I don't know. It's just, I do remember that one. It was really nice to go back there again, and still the most beautiful trophy I have is from that tournament. So
the next year, 1980, maybe your best year on the tour, another 4 wins, and this time the US Women's Open, your second major crown. And this was like Tiger Woods at Pebble Beach. You didn't have to make a 50-foot putt on the 18th hole to win this one. You win by 9 strokes. This is what we call being in the zone.
Totally. Yeah. It was one of the hottest summers in American history, especially in the southeast. Gordon White was the writer with the New York Times. And we became good friends because he would always write about me. And I said, Gordon, why do you always have to call me Miss Alcott? Every other newspaper is Amy Alcott or Miss Lopez or Miss So-and-so. He says, well, that's what we do at the New York Times. We don't call people by their first names. So I developed a great friendship with him. And he was walking around during the practice rounds. It was so hot that week. They had 20 players withdraw out of the US Open. People were saying, whoever finishes the tournament will win. So, I mean, that event was a global warming express because it was just incredibly hot. It was a survival test. I almost passed out on the final round coming up the 10th hole. I had ice around my neck and I just, again, I was out of it. I just kind of trudged along and won on this great old Donald Ross course. That was at 23. So that was pretty young to win the US Open. It's pretty young to win any tournament, but I kind of proved that I could hang in there and win. So
Won 5 majors, 29 LPGA tournaments, and you played in Japan too. What was it like playing in Japan? And I know that country's crazy about golf. And how did it differ from playing in the U.S. or elsewhere?
well, Japan became really golf crazy. I mean, it was nuts. Men's tour, women's tour. They used to, before there was money, the Japanese would pay huge fees for, Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer and people like that to come over and showcase the game of golf. It became so popularized back in the 70s. Then, most at the time, if you could drive all around the different cities, I made 40 trips there. And I think I won 2 or 3 times in Japan. But they have these night lighted driving ranges, which was what most Japanese people do. Especially back then, they didn't know a game actually existed because it was too expensive. They would broker memberships to golf courses. It was like a stock exchange. You want to play at Mushashigaoka or Takanadai or Tokyo Country Club, it'll cost you this much money today. So most Japanese players, for a long period of time, it was a social thing to meet on the driving ranges. And I went there so many times, twice a year for like 12 years. I saw how the game grew and developed over there and how their talent, I mean, by seeing the great Americans, they duplicated, and took it to another level, kind of like the way the Koreans are doing now, especially in women's golf, because of all the technology and everything. But those were great trips I made over there. There are a lot of great stories and memories. And of course, winning there was pretty amazing with the thousands of people on a Sunday on the hills. It became a huge, when you won, it was a huge picnic. Everybody, I mean, you think the galleries in America were big. They were 10 times as big in Osaka or Nagoya or wherever we were. So those trips were really rewarding.
In 1999, you're inducted into the Golf Hall of Fame. What did that mean to you?
Well, I didn't even know a Hall of Fame in my sport existed. As I guess I said earlier, it's about plodding along, consistency. You don't really, one year melds into another, melds into another, melds into another, and you're already, for whatever reason, you're out there 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. I remember one of our commissioners saying to me in the 80s, if you keep up at this pace, you're going to get in the Hall of Fame. And I said, well, what's that? I didn't even know that it exists. A Hall of Fame existed. I certainly didn't play the sport to get into a Hall of Fame. But the Hall of Fame in women's golf was very, very controversial, because when they had the Hall of Fame, it was very easy for any of the guys to get in. The guys had to be on tour for 10 years and win 10 tournaments. You didn't even have to win a major, but if you won 10 tournaments and you'd been on tour 10 years, so there was a myriad of guys in the Hall of Fame. But in women's golf, it was going to ultimately, the criteria was so difficult, set way back when, what we were talking, Mickey Wright and these people were playing, when it was easier to win 4 and 5 tournaments a year. The criteria was, I think, 40 tournaments, no majors, 35 tournaments, 1 major. 30 tournaments, you had to have won, you had to win 30 tournaments with 1 major or something like that. It was just ridiculous. And women weren't getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. It became like years were going by. And then between at the time, the Hall of Fame between the American golf writers, sports writers, shell that housed the Hall of Fame down in St. Augustine, Florida. They came up and said, we got to change this criteria in women's golf, because that's women aren't, if they win 1 or 2 tournaments a year, we're going to have a dead Hall of Fame. So I guess a group of people within the tour got together. Now, this is probably my funniest story, because I was on 29 wins. Now, I had won other tournaments in Asia that didn't count. I'd probably won 32, but official LPGA tournaments, I was stuck at 29 events. So I needed 1 more, even though 5 of those were all majors. They didn't count for anything else. And so every week I'd show up for like 2 years. So whether it was Wilmington, Delaware, the Philadelphia Inquirer, Furman Bisher at Atlanta Constitution, I could go down a list. All the guys at Golf Digest, when's Amy Alcott going to win that 1 more tournament? And I show up, and it took all the joy out of enjoying playing on the tour, because if I didn't win, it didn't matter. I had to win. They're all looking for me to win. And my standard line was, 1 more tournament is not going to prove anything to me that I don't already know. And everybody kind of knew that. So like a lot of things happen when it's gone on so long, you're not even thinking about it. My phone rang during the off season. I think it was January. And Joanne Carner, who played on the tour, was a great player. She was on the board, and 1 other person were on the board, and said, Amy, we've finally come up with a point system. The criteria for women has changed now. We've changed the Hall of Fame criteria. And we want to tell you that you will be the first player to be inducted under this new criteria. And I'm going, what? So I tell people, if getting a phone call to get into the Hall of Fame is like a relief, that's what it was. It was no joy in it. It was a relief. And that's how they changed it. And they've changed it a little bit, but that's what it is today. So I was inducted in 99 with Seve Ballesteros and Lloyd Mangrum. Now they have different categories. It could be, Ely Callaway, or they have different categories that not just being a player. Dinah Shore is in it, and so a lot of history.
You just mentioned Dinah Shore. You did quite well in that tournament out in Rancho Mirage. 3 wins there. But in 1988, you started another tradition. Involved water. Tell me how that came about.
I didn't have any planned, but I think I said to my caddy, Bill Curry, during a practice round, I said, has anybody ever jumped in the water when they won a tournament? And he said, no, I don't. It was just something that breezed over. And I win the tournament. I hit this amazing shot in the wind. And end up looking at Bill on the green there and said, we're going in the water. And it wasn't anything the way they had changed it. It was rocks in there, and we didn't know how deep it was, and there was bird doo-doo, and it was a mess. And we just dove in the water. I had no idea that it would become like the Sports Center lead-in at the end of every year in women's golf. They still show that it became the most iconic jump in whatever. And then ensuingly, my mother passed away, and Dinah Shore knew how close I was to my mom. And she shared with me that she was jealous that there she was on the 18th green, and I didn't bring her into the water. And that if I could win that tournament 1 more time for my mom, that she wanted to go in the water with me. And then everybody was looking for somebody to jump in the water again after I did it in 88. And then it was just a moment of excitement. I don't know, sometimes I had this conversation once with Ben Crenshaw when he won the Masters right after his longtime coach, Harvey Pennick, had died. And he told me he just played out of his mind. He wasn't even in his body. That was how it was for me in 91 when I won after my mom died. And so I was motivated. I mean, I won that tournament by 9 shots. And there was Dinah on the 18th green, and she had black pants on. She always used to wear white pants. She's assistant was carrying a robe. And I walked on the green with everyone screaming. They set the tournament record. I make this amazing putt, and I say, Bill, we're going in and we're taking Dinah. And that's when we all jumped in, and that was my last win on the LPGA. And to make it that memorable and to do that and develop the friendship I did with Dinah, and it was very meaningful, That's why I tell younger players now, these gals out there, you don't win very often. Embrace your stardom, show some personality, I wasn't trying to do anything other than just kind of be myself, but that's what happened there. And I had no idea it become so popularized that now that even Chevron runs the event now and has moved the event to Houston, they had to find a golf course that had an 18th hole that had a lake. So even though it appears to me to be a little contrived, when I'm asked, it's like it's not natural, because it's still the thing to do.
My wife was a reporter out in Palm Springs a number of years ago, and she used to cover the one of the tournaments that came out there, and she jumped in the pond in your honor on the news. On the news. She did it right after the show. They said, she goes, I'm going to do it. So she took her mic down and in her full outfit, jumped in the pond.
Wow. That's great. Well, tell her congratulations.
I told her, I want to ask you, when she goes, when I was in the air, I thought, this is going to be cold. When you went and jumped in, was there ever a point when you're in the air and you're thinking, I don't know if this was the smartest move?
No, I just knew I was going to land, and hopefully it wasn't like an inch of water. No, it was a lake, but it was gray, and there were rocks in there and wires and ducks and it wasn't anything the way they kind of manufactured it to be kind of more appealing. And then people got very upset, and I guess I did too, because they started naming it Poppy's Pond.
Yes, it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, well, everybody's saying, why don't they name it Amy's Pond? Amy's the one that started that. But they ended up naming it after the tournament director of the tournament. Mm-hmm. But that was some political thing. So
Ted Wilcox.
Yeah, one of these things you just got to let go. It's not a big deal.
So golf isn't your only passion. Tell us about how you became involved in a bakery in Westwood.
Well, that's way, way back when. The bakery was just because I came from, going to my chiropractor, and I've always loved food. And then, the Art Golf Digest down in my trophy room, I have the long article with me with a chef's hat on, I just wanted to have a regular job. I think and so I just went in there. I didn't want to be paid, and I enjoyed helping them out. But nowadays, I never use the word retired. And as I've kind of gotten away from golf, I have a consulting company to companies that want to put money into golf events. I've seen so much and seen how things have changed that, people want to sponsor events or whatever. I'm kind of a real idea person, so I actually come up with events for ideas and concepts. I do a lot of speaking for charities and companies, do golf clinics, I guess, to borrow a line that I found totally amazing, walking one day out of the Bel Air Country Club, I saw Pete Sampras. It was the week of Wimbledon there. And I said, "Hi, Pete, how are you? Amy Alcott." He says, "I'm doing great." And he hits this big slice off the 10th hole at the Bel Air Country Club. I said, "How's it going for you? Wouldn't you normally be at Wimbledon?" And he says, "Well, no, those days are over." And he looked at me, he says, "I'm just trying to remain relevant." And I walked away from that and I thought, aren't we all, as you remove yourself from one side of a career, that's what I've been trying to do probably since about 1994, as I've slowed down from the tour, is just try to find things that interest me that, whether it's, speaking or hopefully writing another book or whatever, is just trying to remain relevant because, I want to still be a part of the world of golf.
And those when you worked at the bakery, those sandwiches, you also made sandwiches at the bakery. Do you use that? Do you make those sandwiches at home now, or was that just while you were working at the deli?
No, I don't make anything like that at the house. I'd probably go to a deli and buy it. But I mean, if I go, that was just one of the many phases of my career, was the making the sandwiches at the deli. And I met a lot of interesting people. And it was like a real job, it wasn't getting on a plane and flying to Corning, New York and hitting balls on the range and putting and playing a practice round in the rain and another week in a hotel and a yada, 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 same routine. It was different. It was more like I wanted to experience what a person like that works in a dry cleaner does or works in a bakery. I'd never done that before. So to me, that was a real job.
Grab your boots, it's trivia time. Past our prime, but still in our prime.
You made a cameo in the movie Tin Cup, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay, so here's your trivia question: true or false?
It ended up on the floor of the
Edit room.
but it was a great scene. Yeah.
Oh, wait. Well, I'll ask you the trivia question, then tell me what the scene was. So true or false, the director and writer of that movie, Ron Shelton, was a professional golfer at one time.
True or false?
Yes.
False.
That is right. It is false. He was a professional baseball player. He played minor league baseball, which served for the inspiration for Bull Durham. But he loved sports. So
Yeah.
what was the scene in Tin Cup that we didn't get to see in the movie?
Well, Ron was a member at my country club, and I was talking to him or whatever. He was telling me that he was making this golf film and all these people were in it. And I just said, boy, if there's a spot for me, I'd love to do it. I just kind of threw it out there. And he ended up calling me up, and they were shooting at the Woodlands down in Houston, Texas. And my scene was supposed to be at a bar where Tin Cup, Kevin Costner, shoots like, in the first round, he shoots like 82. And he's sitting at the bar with Cheech Marin. It's actually a scene that's in the movie, but my scene agenda to it is cut out. And I'm sitting at the bar in the distance, and Cheech Marin says, "Hey man, that's okay. You're doing okay. I think that woman at the end of the bar there, that's the famous golfer Amy Alcott. Maybe she could help you with your game or something. You get before tomorrow." And that was what they said. I'm supposed to get up off the bar stool, not hearing any of this, and walk over. And I just put my hand on Kevin Costner's shoulder and I said, "How'd you play today, Tin Cup?" He says, "Get away from me, something like shitty or whatever. I don't know what he says. And my line is, "That's okay. You'll play better tomorrow." It's always like that.
Oh,
And so that was my line. "That's okay. You'll always play better tomorrow."
nice. Marv Albert, Red Auerbach, Sandy Koufax, Hank Greenberg, Howard Cosell, Mark Spitz, Ali Reisman, Dara Torres, just a handful of members in the National Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. Oh, and Amy Alcott. How much of an honor is it for you, Amy, to be included with these great people?
Yes, it's not something I think about on a daily basis, but I'm very honored and proud. And I grew up years when I was a junior golfer, coming back from the San Diego Zoo in a car, and my parents pulled off. They'd just built La Costa, if you could believe it. And I told my dad I wanted to go in, and he took me into the golf shop. It was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we stood there with the pro, and I looked at my dad and pulled on his, shirt, and I said, "Can I play? Can I play?" And we were just driving back to Los Angeles. And the pro said, "Well, there's a gentleman out on the 10th tee. Your daughter could join for a few holes if she'd like to." And I went out on the 10th tee, and there was a man hitting left-handed, and it was Sandy Koufax.
No.
Played 5 holes with him in a golf cart when I was about 11 years old. And, back then, I'm 11 years old. You're not talking about religion or anything, but I would go to every Dodger game and sit with my dad. I had a crush on Wally Moon, the center fielder. So I knew everything about the Dodgers. My dad was going bald, and I had to sit with like 2 people at the LA Coliseum before Chavez Ravine was even built. I had to have my dad. We had to sit in the center field in the first row. No one was out there, so I could see Wally Moon. Come back home and put his white jacket on Monday to go to as a dentist to go to work, and his head was totally red. People didn't use that much sunscreen. And so obviously I was a big Dodger fan. So, to answer your question, it's a wonderful honor and something I'm very proud of.
Amy, talking to you, I smile. The entire interview, I've been smiling.
Yeah.
You just have such a way about you that is so easygoing. It's like we're just chatting. I really love it.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys are terrific. Lots of fun.
You once said, concentrate, play your game, don't be afraid to win. That, my friends, is Amy Alcott, Hall of Famer. Amy, thanks so much for joining us on the Past Our Prime podcast today.
Thank you. With you guys, I still feel like I'm in my prime.
You are. You are.
Yes.
You are, man. Amy, you're awesome.
Thanks so much.
Right
Thanks
on.
for getting in touch, and I'll look forward to being on again.
Thank you, Amy. No death for a salesman. Hard to believe, but in the mid-70s, college sports was not good business. Making money on college sports was a bad bet. It just didn't happen. And now women wanted a piece of the action as Title IX has become the law of the land. That's good for women, and an even tougher sell for those trying to turn a profit on college sports. The stadiums where the games are played are old, they're outdated, and they are falling apart. But this guy in Michigan, Don Canham, he thinks he can make it all work. A former businessman, he's been the athletic director at the University of Michigan for the last 7 years. And Canham is an entrepreneur. He's the track coach at Michigan for 19 years, now spends his time working with a $4.5 million budget, twice what it was when he first started the job. Michigan is making money and people are noticing, and that's with the stadium that could always hold plenty of people, but for a long time there, Billy, it was half empty.
Yeah, I think there at one point they had 48,000 people in a stadium that fits 100,000 plus. That's shocking. When I read that, I read it twice thinking that has to be a typo. No, that was true. They couldn't get people in that stadium. But once he hired Mr. Bo Schembechler, things changed there at Michigan.
which was one of the great hires in sports history. But then Schembechler was also one of the worst hires in sports history when he was hired by.
Who'd he go to? Angels?
Nope.
No one in baseball would be dumb enough to hire a football guy.
No one
If you're
would.
the Detroit Tigers, you are.
Oh my God.
They had a
terrible
football
move.
guy run the baseball program, which explains why in the 90s, Detroit had some of the worst drafts. And they got into a really bad funk that took them like about 15 years to get out of. So yes, really, really bad hire.
Yeah.
Don't
I'd
hire
like
a
to know
football
what-
guy to run your baseball team.
Right. And it's one thing, I mean, even if you wanted to pull a Ted Lasso and make him the manager, I mean, that would be weird. But to the general manager, bizarro. 28 universities have either paid Canham's way to their campus to discuss their problems or sent a representative to sit and learn at the feet of the master in Ann Arbor. The last college to turn to Canham was Yale. Get this, 10 years ago, Yale had a budget for its athletic department that was $37 million. Has to be over 40 million by now. So, I mean, even the Yales are making huge money now in college sports, and a lot of people can thank this guy Don Canham for sure.
Thanks, Don.
You're welcome.
Yes. For the record, Bill.
Okay. Roger Maltby, we've seen him as a golf commentator, but there was one time he was a great golfer. He became the first rookie in 7 years to win back-to-back tournaments when he roared past 8 players with a final round 500 to win the $200,000 Pleasant Valley Classic. Then he came back the next week to win the Quad City Open. Doing well for him. Well, over the final 21 years, he only won 3 more events.
Really?
Yeah, but he's still a very good commentator for golf.
Yeah, he's been an announcer for
Yeah.
NBC for forever, right?
But I mean, you start off as a rookie to win 2 tournaments in a row. You're thinking, I've got this. And then you go 21 more years and win only 3. Not saying that's bad. I mean, 5 tournaments in all is quite impressive for anybody.
Yeah, like, I mean, when we just talked to Amy and I was like, you win a month into your career and you must be thinking this is going to be great. And, it's just not that easy, it's not that easy at all. I got one. Retired Dallas Cowboys defensive tackle Bob Lilly, 35 after 14 seasons, 7-time All-Pros, been hampered by injuries the last 2 years. 5 years later, Mr. Cowboy, as he was known, would be inducted into the Hall of Fame, one of the great Cowboys of all time. I'm sure both of you guys know Mr. Lilly.
Yeah, he went on and signed with the Tigers soon after.
No, but what's funny? Just underneath the Bob Lilly retiring, talk about changing of the guard, the Cowboys also traded Bob Hayes to the 49ers. I never knew he got traded to the Niners for draft picks. I mean, Bob Hayes was one of my favorite Cowboy players, man. He would catch long bombs from Don Meredith and Craig Morton and Roger Staubach. Oh, he was such an electric player.
Yeah, fast.
And he was super fast. He was a gold medal track star from the '64 Olympics. But when you watch him on the football field, the way he ran, it almost looked like he was in pain. Like it almost looked like he was limping. But he was super fast. But his stride it was weird. It didn't look like there was like this maximum effort. But you never saw anyone catch him from behind.
No. Mark, you got another one?
Oh yeah, retired. Henri Richard, not Henry Richard, as I would like to call him. 39 years old. He was captain of the Montreal Canadiens, 20-year career, scored 407 goals, assisted on 768 others. And when he was with the Montreal Canadiens, they won 11 Stanley Cups.
Yeah, 11 Stanley Cups is quite impressive in 20 years.
But remember, there was until 67, there were only 6 teams in the NHL.
Yeah. Yep. Only had to beat 5 others. And they did.
Hey, 11's 11.
Still 1 out of 6. It's the odds are against you still.
Well, I'm going to do another one just because this guy was on our show and I liked him a lot. Marty LaQuarrie breaks the American record for the 2-mile run, timed in 8 minutes and 17.2 seconds at an international meet in Stockholm, Previous record of 8 minutes and 18 seconds was set by Steve Prefontaine in Stockholm the year prior. We talked a lot about Prefontaine with Frank Shorter. And boy, we are getting a real tutorial in the life of track and field athletes from 50 years ago. And I got to say, I like it.
Me too.
Faces in the crowd, Billy.
Okay, I'll try to make this quick. Bill Bordley. Bill Bordley was the high school player of the year. He went to USC in 1976, was 14-0 as his freshman. Then in 1977, he was named the Pac-8 Athlete of the Year ahead of USC football's Charles White and UCLA basketball David Greenwood. Sorry, I should say Bill Bordley played baseball. His 26-2 win-loss record remains the best in USC history. He's also part of USC Hall of Fame. And then after his collegiate career, you're thinking, this guy's going to have a heck of a major league career. MLB Commissioner Bowie Keane found the California Angels guilty of tampering with Bradley, so his rights went to the San Francisco Giants. Bordley only pitched in 1980. He won his first 2 starts, ended his career with a 2-3 record because of arm injuries, ended his career. But he went into the spy business. He's been security with MLB. The man's had an amazing, amazing life, and it all started with his baseball career.
Mark, you got one?
Yes, Sharon Duffy. She's a freshman. She broke the Penn State single-season scoring record in lacrosse, 38 goals in 10 games. Previous record had been 26. She also had 11 assists, and she was a really, really good player for them. She played lacrosse in the 75 team, the 76 team, and the 78 team. She finished her career with 154 goals and recorded 199 points. So one of the true great athletes in Penn State history.
So, absolutely. Who knew? 19th hole, Billy.
Okay. This comes from Maureen Griffin from Westbrook, Connecticut. She says, as a horse lover and owner, I felt very badly about the destruction of the gallant and beautiful ruffian, but I also felt anger. I have to wonder what would happen to many of these beautiful broken down horses if they had not started pounding the turf at such a young age. Any horse owner should know that just because a horse is big and tall as a yearling does not mean that its bones are set and ready for the pounding from running on a track. You go, Maureen.
Well, I will at least say this, that the people that say that they didn't do enough or they shouldn't have put Ruffian down, I don't see any argument for that or any evidence of that.
Nope.
Right.
People that have an issue with racing horses and that may be, you know, not good for them. I mean, I think they have a legitimate talking point. You know, I mean, you can argue one way or the other and take sides, but there's definitely these horses are really put out there, and it's a dangerous sport, and they don't get a say in it. So very interesting. I got one. When anybody wins a Wimbledon singles title 6 times, makes it to the finals 8 of the last 10 years, overcomes all the odds to beat young players in grueling matches, and with bad knees to boot, that person certainly deserves to be on your cover. You know who I'm talking about. Billie Jean King. You guys really blew it this time. Pam Good from Salina, Kansas.
You go, Pammy.
And
Yeah.
Pam, I think you have a nice point there, but I'm going to stick with Arthur. I think they got it right.
Yeah, I do too.
I think the first black guy to win at Wimbledon in such a huge upset is just and you know, Billie Jean, hers was an upset too, but nonetheless, I'll go with Arthur.
Me too.
Yep.
Mark, you going Billie Jean King?
No, I'm going Arthur.
Okay.
There you go.
Split the cover. Maybe they could have split the cover.
It's anonymous.
Yeah. Hey,
That is going to do it for
before you
this
sign off,
week's-
can I just salute someone real quick?
Sure.
No, you don't have
sure.
to, Mark. Just tell me in person.
Bill, you're an asshole. No. There's my salute to you. Good thing no one can see it. I just want to salute ex-Kentucky football player Scott Mitchell. Why, you might ask? Because he stopped a suspected arson in Runyon Canyon last week. And true story, I'm walking Runyon Canyon back from my daughter's apartment, And my wife calls me and says, there's supposed to be a fire in Runyon Canyon. And of course, we lost our house in the Palisades fire. And I'm like, what? But I don't see anything. And then I come around the corner and I see like 7 or 8 fire trucks, about 3 or 4 cop cars, but I don't see any smoke. But I walk by the cop car and I see a guy in handcuffs in the back seat. So it turns out what happens, this guy set fire to a palm tree. And this former Kentucky football player, Mitchell, saw him, tracked him down, and the guy was a homeless 43-year-old guy, and he said that he was a fire inspector or something like that, and they didn't buy it or whatever. But they contacted 911. They held him there for the authorities to get there. He gets arrested. They put the fire out because, the last thing we need in LA is another major blaze. And that palm tree went up, and it was something to behold. So my kudos, I want to say, to Scott Mitchell. I know this isn't 50 years ago, but I thought what he did was great, and thank you.
Was he? Was he? That's not the Scott Mitchell
No.
that played for the Lions,
No,
is it?
not the quarterback. No.
I
thought
Okay.
it was
different
too.
one. Different one.
Different.
Well, nonetheless, way to go, Scott.
Yeah, good job.
Nice
man.
work. And I want to thank the great Amy Alcott for joining us. I think this is a pretty safe thing to say, but you can never go wrong when one of your guests is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
That's true.
And that's going to do it. Thanks for listening. For Bill, that's you.
Oh yeah. Bye.
That's Bill, Bill,
Yep. And for Mark, he spells it with a C.
I am, because I'm French.
There we go. I'm Scott. I spell it with 2 T's, and we are past our prime.